All right, I have kind of an important announcement to make. It's I wrote it because it needs to be read because it's super important. I don't want to get anything wrong. Okay, it has to do with me and you. Okay, so just listen. I, the undersigned obligor, that's me. In consideration of the mutual covenants, conditions, and dependency herein set forth, and for other good and valuable considerations, the receipt and sufficiency of which are hereby expressly acknowledged and confessed, does hereby covenant, warrant, grant, remise, release, and forever quit claim unto the obligee, you, its heirs, devisees, successors, assigns, transferees, and any person or entity claiming by or through, and this is really important, or under the obligee, an indefeasible fee, simply absolute estate in and to all rights, titles, and interests, both legal and equitable. Okay, please continue to listen hard here. In and to the subject matter thereof, subject, however, to the express conditions subsequent to any purported waiver, modification, or forbearance. That's a good Christian word. To any term, provision, or covenant contained in this instrument or any ancillary document incorporated herein by reference shall be null, void, and of no force or effect. Ab initio, unless reduced to a writing executed with the same degree of formality as this instrument and containing an express recital that it is intended to constitute such waiver, modification, or forbearance. Anything in this instrument or in any rule or law or of law, equity, or statutory construction to the contrary, notwithstanding. Now, this is about heaven and hell, folks. You guys understood all that, right? I promise you that almost every sermon I heard as a child sounded like that to me. Had no idea what was going on. This is what it says. I'm giving you complete ownership of this thing. Forever, it's yours. And it will belong to you, your family, or anyone who comes after you. But if ever you want to change any part of this agreement, we will have to write it down in a new official paper that just as formal as this one. Otherwise, the change doesn't count. That version was way easier, was it not? See, one is a bunch of legal terms. This is why people go to law school, right? So that they can try to interpret all the jargon. They pay big bucks to go to school, and you pay them big bucks just to be able to simplify things so that you can understand it. That's why pastors go to seminary and divinity school. So that we can take something so abstract, so absurd, so ridiculous as the Bible and make it somehow understandable to you commoners. Not buying it? Yeah. The New Testament was written in this thing called Koine Greek, and Koine Greek was a very common form of language. Anybody who had any education whatsoever could read it. It wasn't the high Greek. It wasn't the philosophical Greek. It wasn't all that classical Greek. It was the commoner's Greek. Today we have translations of the Bible like the King James, and the King James is not the original King James. If you ever read a King James version, you're reading an edited version, because the original one you would not be able to read like at all, I don't think, because it was in Elizabethan English, and it was all these, the M's were like W's and the V's were like E's, and it was all convoluted. So language changes. And then you go back to the original where we have like the Hebrew and the Greek, and it's like, well, thank God today we don't have to take Hebrew. We can go online and look up words, right? But I had to pay a lot of money to go to school to be able to tell you, in theory, what you should understand on your own. But it isn't easy, is it? It's really funny is most of the people who tell me they don't understand the Bible, I'm like, well, what's the last thing you read? Oh, well, I mean, have you read it at all? Well, I mean, no. It's like, how do you know if you understand it or not? I've heard people, and they told me, can't understand it. I'm working on the apartment. It's been hot this week, as you all know. How many of you guys have air conditioning? Yeah. Thank Jesus for air conditioning, right? Well, our house is an old house, and some electric is a little bit older. And most of it's been rewired, but evidently, when you turn the coffee maker on, it breaks the fuse or whatever, because the air conditioning's on too, right? And then so I was explaining, because Letta's like, well, I don't understand. Like, I turned the microwave on, and then this went off, and then, I don't understand. And I was like, honey, it's simple, okay? So the microwave's on the line that's from the two air conditioners downstairs. It draws a lot more. And the coffee maker's on a separate line from the upstairs air conditioning, and it draws less. Duh. And she's like, yeah, I don't know what you just said. Yeah. You see, because I know exactly what I meant, right? It was really easy for me, and anybody who has done anything electrical will understand your line. You're talking about the wire. You're talking about the draw of electricity. Now that it's like 97 degrees out, the air conditioner is like working super hard, drawing a lot of electricity. So your bill this month is going to be outrageous. Okay. So it's drawing all that electricity, and so when the little coffee maker is like, okay, 150 degrees, 170 degrees, it's like trying to get up there, it's like it shorts out, and it's like, oh, thank God, because it's exhausted, right? That's what happens. But to the average person who doesn't necessarily understand or never done electricity, some of that stuff is just completely don't get it, don't understand it. Somehow, in some way, sometimes people and Christians, and I'm comparing Christians to lawyers right now, because lawyers are known to be just slightly smug and maybe a little bit arrogant. Not all, I'm sure, but definitely a few, because they kind of know an insider language that we don't know. I was looking up some of the reasons why they use such jargon. Of course, they want to be super precise because people are manipulative. So you got to have all these crazy entities, all these crazy ways of saying it to make sure that all the angles are covered, because someone's going to try to come up with a new angle to try to subvert the contract. And so that's the job of the lawyers, to make sure they don't do that, right? Christianity is kind of similar. We ain't got no newfangled weirdo stuff. We got to make sure it stays pure. So there's only one way to understand it, and it's the way that I'm telling you. And don't try to understand it yourself, you commoner. You're not going to understand it. Ask me, I'll tell you. And then just listen to me, follow me. I'll start a new religion. I'm going to start a cult, people. I only require like 80% of your income. We'll live together in my house. We'll cook, we'll clean, we'll argue. About a month later, you're going to hate me. That's okay, because it's God's will. No, that's silly, right? But people will get caught up in all of that because we think, well, I really don't think I'm going to be able to understand anything that God has for me. Now, granted, listen, I'm glad I'm here. Don't get me wrong. This is part of the reason why I explain, and maybe I over-explain things. Because I grew up in church my whole life, and I didn't understand much of anything that was going on. I would use words even in the context of a sentence that made sense. I just didn't know what it meant. You follow what I'm saying? And so I understand that many of us, when you're hearing certain things, you're like, I don't know what that means. And then either you forget about it on your way out, or you might be a little embarrassed to ask because you don't want to sound dumb. I get it. I never asked. I don't want to sound dumb. I want to sound smart. I want to use that SAT word in a sentence to make it sound, the SAT tests for college, the big words. Say in a sentence, use it properly. Someone would be impressed that you used it, even though I don't know what it means. Well, in Romans 10, we're continuing Romans. We've been doing this study, the Romans Road to the Good Life, right? That's what we've been doing over the course of many weeks. We're in Romans 10 now. This is going from Gobbledygook to the good news. From not understanding Jack to understanding exactly what we need to understand. Not everything. We don't understand everything. There's no way. It's God we're talking about. You're not going to understand God in his entirety and complexity. There's no way. But we know enough to have a dynamic and amazing relationship. And we continue to grow in our understanding and knowledge of him because we get to know him better, closer to him. Not because we know the Bible so much better than everybody else. Nothing wrong with knowing the Bible. Don't get me wrong. But that's not the goal. Verse 13, it says, everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Now, to me, that is the most simple sentence I have heard in a very long time. But there are going to be some of you, it's like, I'm going to be saved from what? Like, what is that saved word? You remember back in like the 70s and 80s, it was a big deal to be saved? I barely remember it. I'm still so young, but there was a term people talked about all the time, being saved, being born again, being saved. And it's like, I don't know. Because it was churchese. It was a language the church used. And they go out there and people don't know what they're talking about. You've been saved? Sure. Because anyone who calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved. Oh, but Paul addresses this. He says, but how can people call on someone they've never trusted? Why would you call on somebody that you don't trust? Verse 15, and how can they trust somebody that they've never heard about? And how can they hear if nobody tells them? You people, man. And how can anyone go and tell them unless they've been sent? That's why Scripture says, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news. All right, people. Bottom line is this. We are the good news. Not because we are the good news. It's because if we're following Christ, we have received and we understood the good news. And what's the good news? The good news is that Jesus loves us, died for us, rose again, and he lives now for us, right? All we got to do is have a relationship with him, with God through him, right? It's amazing, this faith. But we're not going to expect people to understand, to come into church and hear us singing and be like, wow, this is so wonderful. It's so blessing. Such a blessing to hear people sing so joyously. You should see in all your faces, you were like, you were so joyous while you sang. No, I almost started cracking up. Because I'm thinking, I don't know what I look like when I'm singing, but y'all look, like you're in pain. Okay? I'll just tell you. I'm joking a little bit, but people, you don't expect them to come in and just be so blessed by the music and then hear a sermon that sounds like what I read at the beginning. Hearing verses of the Bible out of context about God wanting to swallow them up and destroy them or something. How was church? It's fine. Because you bring them here in hopes that I can somehow convince them because God knows none of us can. Well, I don't know anything about the Bible. I don't know anything about God. It's like, yes, you do. You know more than they do. Well, I mean, this much. But it's enough because you have a relationship with him? Well, yeah. Then you know all that you need to know. to be able to help someone else. You see, if you look at this book, Bible just means book, right? The Holy Bible is just a holy book. If you look at this book, it's more of a library. It's got a bunch of books in it, right? But if you look at this and you say, the goal is that I got to follow this thing specifically, you're going to miss the point. You're going to miss it all. You see, the Bible isn't so you can sit there and dissect it and understand it in such a way that you can articulate it in a way that uses much big words. Big words. Big words explain. Big words I use to explain. Because God is big God. Big words, big God. I'm already annoying some of you, aren't I? Right? And it's like, no, you see, the game isn't like, so then I was talking to a buddy of mine this week. And he was, I can't say everything because it'll you don't even know the guy that well, if you know him at all. But anyway, he's a friend of mine. He's been here a few times. But we get into discussions about the Bible because he's a big Bible guy. And my point is always, dude, I'm telling you, I don't believe that the Bible is the end goal. God is. This is a vehicle which helps us have a relationship with God. So if you look at this and you're like, yeah, but what verse can you tell me to be okay with what you're doing? Because I can name a few verses right now that can tell you why it's wrong. Have anyone ever had an experience similar to that, where someone is telling you that you're way off? Nobody? A couple? Yeah, there's been a few of us, right? If you know any Christians, I'm sure it's happened. Right? Paul says here, everybody who calls in the name of the Lord will be saved. God isn't up there saying, dude, you're bald, I'm sorry. Don't do bald guys in heaven. Sorry, you're a little bit too skinny for me. Sorry, no, you're too annoying, you're too obnoxious, you're too arrogant, you're too this, you're too that. God's like, listen, you call on me, I will answer. I love you. I created you. All you got to do is call on me. The problem is who do you ever... If you got a problem, who do you call? Call someone you haven't talked to in months and weeks or maybe even years, an old high school friend? If you've got an emergency, who are you calling? You call someone you trust. And you're talking about your immortal soul. You're not going to call on something or someone that you don't trust. And how do you trust God? How do you trust Him? You got to get to know Him. And how am I supposed to know God when no one's telling me? Listen, people. This is important. This is huge. You see, people aren't going to understand anything about God until you help them understand by your life. You guys follow me here? Sorry, I feel trapped up there, okay, guys? Gotta move the... So listen. We have to be the voice, the person who shows our friends and our neighbors and our family members who Jesus is. Because they're not going to know. They're not going to understand what they read. They're not going to, they can understand it, but it's not going to make a lot of sense to them. Every time you use terminology that's something that was effective for you, it changes from covenant conditions, remise, release, to God loves you. And I love you. And I just want you to experience the joy, the peace, that whatever that you have, what led you to God, to trust God so that when in your darkest moments you call out to Him. because you know that he answers and he's listening. I know that there's people that call out to God because they're desperate and they're like, I got nothing to lose. I tried everything. So let me call out to God. And then they call out to God in their desperation. Of course, God still hears it. But are they now in a relationship with God? Probably not. That takes time. When you see somebody, when I was young, I look at somebody and I find them attractive. And I find someone else not as attractive. And I would start talking to the attractive one, probably first. And as I talk to them, you get an idea of what they're like. The more time you spend with them, the more you start to see what they like, what they're like. And for some times, and for some people, those people that were super attractive physically start to look less attractive over time because you get to know who they are. It's amazing. Like you look at them later on, it's like, I don't even know why I found them that attractive. I mean, they're okay, but... And then the one that seemed less attractive, you get to know them, and they're like, they're beautiful. Every time I see them, I'm drawn to them. You see, because it's all about relationships, folks. It's not about following somehow a verse that says, do this, 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 and God's going to pat you on the head and say, good job. Except for if you're reading this and you say, and you call out to him and say, God, I want you in my life. I need you in my life. Those are the times where God's like, hey, I've been here the whole time, buddy. I'm waiting. Come on, bring it on. I love you. I can't wait to be in a relationship with you. You're missing out on a whole bunch, people, if you're not in a relationship, right? And how many of our neighbors and how many of our family members and how many of our friends and coworkers have no clue? You don't go up to them and start quoting scripture. I mean, it's just going to be weird. But you spend time with them. You show them love and kindness. You show them what you're about now that you're a follower of Christ. And they're going to be like, I don't know what you're eating, but I want some of it. Because you look great. They're not talking about physically per se. They're just talking about how we respond to them. We become the good news. We become the hands and the feet and the voice and the tongue of Jesus, man. We begin to tell them because they're not going to know. They might... Confession time. I started using tallow on my skin because I read, don't put things on your skin that you can't eat. Well, some of you know what tallow is, right? It's beef fat. And they process it a little bit, right? But it works great. I'm 75 years old, and look at me. No, I'm kidding. But someone said the other day, like, your skin looks pretty good. And I'm like, well, thank you. I'm amazing. And I walked away. No, I didn't do that. You see, they noticed something did. They're like, oh, your skin looks really good. And I'm like, well, thanks. I appreciate that. I can't really take credit for it. I mean, I've been using, and I explained to them what is different about me now. I've lost some weight. You look great. Well, thanks. It's about time you noticed. I've always looked great. The typical response. No, it's like, oh yeah, I've been doing carnivore, blah, 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 blah. It's been working for me. Thank God. Because it's not enough just to simply walk by and show them how good you look because God is in you. You've got to explain to them what changed. Anybody who just simply says, well, just show them. They're not going to understand what it is that makes you so great. It's not you. It's God. God is making you look good. And they're going to be like, man, you're such a kind and generous. Thank you so much. You're like, okay, now what do I say? Well, I can't really bring up God because they're going to think I'm a crazy person. I'm so embarrassed. And you turn bright red, and they're like, what's wrong with you? What's going on inside? There's a conflict going on. Like, do I talk about Jesus? And they're going to, and you just look at them. It's like, it's not that hard, guys. Let me rephrase that. It's not that complicated. But it is difficult. I know, it's hard. You don't come at them like a preacher. I mean, most preachers. You come at them like me, they're going to think you're weird. So I don't do that either. We have to share. Because otherwise they're not going to know how to trust. In verse 16, it says, yet not everyone accepts the good news. Isaiah said, look, who has believed what we've told them? Faith grows when people hear the message, and the message comes through hearing about Christ. You see what convinces people is relationship over time. Now, some of you have been married more than once. And some of you have been in relationships with multiple people. Multiple people. Sorry. No, but and it's like, I don't understand, like, is my radar off? Like, what is it about me that I pick those people that are so very broken, right? And it takes how long to discover the brokenness? Usually it takes a bit. So you go in, it looks good, things are going pretty good, and then there's a little bit of rocks in the road. And you start to feel and to sense the rocks. And the feeling of that sense is familiar, and it's just like, should I be concerned? I mean, no one's perfect. But I have such engaging conversation. They're so interesting. And then the rocks turn into these bumps. It's like, should I be concerned? People around you are like, you look a little troubled. Well, no big deal. It's just, I don't want to talk about it. And then those bumps turn into something further and further. And pretty soon, it feels like we're so off course, and our lives are starting to move, and it's all because of them. Some of us have approached God that way. But some of us started, and probably not a lot of us here, unless you're just hitting the bump stage. Because for a lot of us, or a lot of people that I've known over the years, when you get to that bump stage with God, you're like, I don't know if this is working. This feels a little bit too familiar to me. This isn't like good, like I thought it was. When it first started, God was like, woohoo, God, yay, God. It was exciting. And then he's like, and then the bumps, though, God isn't bouncing with you like that. He's just smooth, right? He's watching you bounce up and down. And it's like, why are you bouncing up and down? Like, why are you hitting these potholes? You don't have to hit those. You can move closer to me. Where I am, it's smooth. See, in relationships, human relationships, we're like this. There's nobody smooth. Only God. And so God's like, okay, if you follow me, when a new person comes into your life, talk to me about it, and we'll say, is this a person who is suitable for romance, or is this a person who's just on the friend zone? Right? Because there's a huge difference. And God's like, I'm not going to let you fall into that. I'm going to warn you. But God doesn't talk like I talk. He talks in the still, small voice that you've got to be listening to. So he's smooth. And then we start to move away from God and things start to get bouncy. And I'm like, I don't know if I can trust you, God. And it's like, you can definitely trust me, is what God says. But my experience is, with all these people in my life, every bounce I hit, I know there's trouble following. It's like, what we tend to forget is that we are the common factor in all of those relationships. We're the one that's common to all of it. And if we're not willing to sacrifice everything that we need to stay close to God, then all the bumps are going to continue. It's kind of like those, what do they call them in the roads? That you start going off a little and it starts to vibrate. What are they? Rumble strips. So you're not paying attention, and you hear this, and I was like, whoops, sorry, my bad. I was looking at my phone, looking at the radio, looking at the birds. And you start to run over there, and it's like, you see, God gives us those things in life. All the time, He gives us those things in life. And it's like, it starts to feel odd. It starts to feel a little weird. And we tend to get used to it. So we often ignore it. Because after you pass that, it's a little clearer after a little bit. While you're ready with the rumble strip right in the middle of your car, right? And then it feels okay. Well, now it's okay, but now if you now it's like I don't under. And then it's no more rumble strip. Now you got rocks and tires and deer and dead animals, and you hit over that. And it's like, whoa! It doesn't happen every day. Well, why does life have to be so complicated? And it's because we make it that way. Every human being, that's what we do. And we see someone else, and we're like, "Why are you over there, riding the middle of a lane, like the line? Why are you so far off?" And we can see it in others; we just can't see it in ourselves. I can all day long tell you everything that needs to change in my family and my church, except for me, right? Because we have so many blind spots, and I can see it in my friends, I could see it in other people in my family, and it's just like, clearly you need to do this, come on, don't be dumb, just do it, come on. And God's like, that may be true, but we have to be in the center of God's will. We have to be with God. We have to be walking with Him before we're ever able to truly see or to truly help. We can both be off the lane, hitting things, and say, something, I think we're off. Yeah, I think we are. We're off-roading right now. This is kind of fun. Until you wind up in a pitch somewhere in a creek and someone's got to try to hoist you out, or you smash into a tree or whatever, tow your car. That's always a bummer. We have to take what seems like gobbledygook to people and make it turn into the good news. We are the translators. We are the ones that have to go out there and lead people to God. No one else is going to do it. It's got to be us. God doesn't typically send angels down to convert you. He sends people to give you the good news. And He says all of us are responsible to do that. Now, how we do it, that is, there's no set way. That's just something that, with your personality and your relationship with those people and all of that, I plant so many seeds, and I'm like, God, give me the opportunity to be able to plant another seed. Sometimes it's just a word, sometimes it's being kind, sometimes it's being good. It's doing those things that make us look different than everyone else. Those are little seeds, but we have to follow those up when God gives us those opportunities. Because they will not call on him if they don't trust him. And they're never going to trust him unless we show them that he's trustworthy. All right, I don't have to come back down there, do I? Because we're all on the same page? All right, let's pray.